1,150 kilograms. That is the weight of the warhead riding inside Ukraine's newest cruise missile. More than a metric ton of high explosive carried across nearly 3,000 kilometers of enemy territory. To put that in perspective, the American Tomahawk, the gold standard of Western cruise missiles for 4 decades, carries a warhead of just 310 kilograms. Ukraine's new weapon hauls almost 4 times that. And it does it while flying so low it skims the treetops. They call it the Flamingo. Officially, it is the FP5, and it has quietly become one of the most consequential weapons to emerge from this entire war. Now, let me be clear about what this thing actually is, because there is a lot of confusion out there. The Flamingo is not a sleek, stealthy, billion-dollar marvel of aerospace engineering. Just the opposite. Look at it closely, and you will see something almost crude. A fat, carbon fiber body. A pair of simple, fixed wings spanning roughly 6 meters, more than double the wingspan of a Tomahawk. And bolted to the top, almost as an afterthought, a large external turbojet engine. One analyst described it perfectly. It looks like a bomb with a jet engine and wings strapped on. And that, believe it or not, is the genius of it. Because here is what that simplicity buys you. Low cost, fast production. When you are not chasing radar-evading stealth shaping or exotic materials, you can build these things quickly and in numbers. And in a war of attrition, numbers win. But it is the range that changes the strategic map. Somewhere between 2,900 and 3,000 kilometers, depending on the load. That single figure pulls almost the entirety of Russia's military-industrial heartland into the crosshairs. The missile plant at Votkinsk, deep in Udmurtia, where intercontinental ballistic missiles are assembled, within range. The defense factories of Perm, 1,500 kilometers from the front, where Stalin himself relocated Soviet weapons production during the Second World War precisely because he believed it was untouchable, within range. Kapustin Yar, the birthplace of the Soviet space program, within range. And here is where it gets interesting. The Flamingo is not fast. Around 960 kilometers per hour, roughly the speed of a Tomahawk, which, by the standards of ballistic missiles, is positively leisurely. So, how does something this large and this slow fly for over an hour across hostile airspace and survive? The answer is altitude, or rather, the lack of it. The Flamingo flies extraordinarily low, in places just 40 or 50 meters above the ground or the waves. And this is not a stunt. This is physics being weaponized. The Earth is curved. Radar travels in straight lines. So when a target hugs the surface, the curve of the planet itself hides it. Russia's vaunted S-400 system, with its enormous Big Bird radar standing some 8 meters tall, can spot a high-flying aircraft nearly 600 kilometers away. But against a target skimming the surface, that detection range collapses to barely 35 kilometers. By the time the radar sees it, there is almost no time to react. And now we arrive at the part the Kremlin would prefer you did not think about. What have these weapons, and the drones flying alongside them, actually hit? Consider the strike on Cheboksary, roughly 1,000 kilometers from Ukrainian territory. The target was a plant producing critical guidance and flight control components, the electronic nervous system for Russian drones, Iskander missiles, and those guided glide bombs that have tormented Ukrainian cities. One commentator called it destroying the brains of Russia's aerial war machine. That is not hyperbole. You can rebuild a factory's walls in months. The specialized electronics inside? That takes far longer. Then there is the chemical plant at Gubaka, in the Perm region, 1,600 kilometers away. It produced the precursors for explosives, the methanol, the hexamine, the compounds without which artillery shells and warheads simply cannot be filled. An irreplaceable target, one analyst called it. And the strikes on Russia's energy backbone tell perhaps the most important story of all. The oil refinery at Kapotnya, on the edge of Moscow itself, processes around 12 million tons of crude every year, roughly 40% of the capital's gasoline and half its diesel. Strikes across the country have, by some estimates, knocked out at least 17% of Russia's total oil processing capacity, with some figures running as high as 40% in given weeks. In a country where roughly a fifth of state revenue flows from oil and gas, this is not a pinprick. This is the war funding itself bleeding out, one refinery at a time. Zelensky has a phrase for it. He calls these strikes long-term sanctions. And here is a detail few people appreciate. The Flamingo's existence was revealed to the world at a very particular moment, just before high-stakes diplomatic talks in Washington. That was no accident. A weapon like this is not only a tool of war, it is a tool of leverage. It is Ukraine saying, in the clearest possible terms, "We are not dependent on your permission to strike back." Which raises a question I want to put directly to you. Is a weapon like the Flamingo, cheap, mass-produced, devastating, and entirely homegrown, the future of warfare for smaller nations? Or does flooding the skies with long-range strike weapons simply make every conflict more dangerous for everyone? I genuinely want to know where you stand on this. Tell me in the comments, because this story is bigger than one missile. The Flamingo did not appear from nowhere. It is the culmination of an evolution, one we cover in our deep dive on Ukraine's long-range drone program, which I would point you toward if you want the full picture. It began with modified agricultural drones and grew into purpose-built machines like the Beaver and the Lyuti, reaching 1,000 kilometers and beyond. Aircraft built from fiberglass and carbon that reflect only a fraction of radar energy, appearing on a screen smaller than a seagull. Drones costing less than a smartphone that can destroy a Pantsir air defense system worth tens of millions. That cost imbalance is the quiet revolution underneath this entire war. And the Russian defenses keep revealing their gaps. A Pantsir crew detecting a drone at 2 kilometers may have as little as 12 seconds to engage before it is on them, and a swarm overwhelms that math instantly. There is even a phenomenon called the Doppler notch, where a drone flying at just the right angle and altitude appears to the radar as motionless ground clutter and gets filtered out entirely. The machine simply decides it is not there. If you find this kind of breakdown valuable, the why and the how behind the headlines, then you already know what to do. So where does this leave us? Russia spent decades building a wall of air defense it believed was impenetrable, boasting of invincible weapons like the Sarmat. And a country with a fraction of that budget is now punching holes straight through it, 1,500 kilometers deep, with a missile that looks like a flying bomb. The Flamingo has rewritten the rules. The only question now is, who learns the lesson fastest? So I will leave you with this. Has Ukraine just proven that the era of the expensive, exquisite superweapon is over, and that cheap, simple, and many will always beat rare and perfect? Or is that wishful thinking? Make your case below.